suppose we can get started. It's 2 minutes after 6 here. My name is Katie Chipman-Bergsma. I'm from the League of Women Voters, Eastern Upper Peninsula group. I'm advocacy chair for that group. And today we'll be doing a presentation on national popular vote. Afterwards, you can get more information at www.nationalpopularvote.com. The purpose of this presentation is to educate the public about the national popular vote and actions people can take to help pass the necessary legislation in Michigan. The League of Women Voters of Michigan has joined the Michigan National Popular Vote Coalition. Other members include ACLU, Common Cause, Mothering Justice, and Voters Not Politicians. As part of the coalition, the League is engaged in legislative campaign to pass the National Popular Vote Compact. The bill has been introduced in the Michigan legislature, and we plan to get it passed before the legislature's summer recess. Educational presentations at town halls and webinars across the state play an important role in educating the public about the national popular vote and what we can do to help get the bill passed in the legislature. How the United States currently elects the president. Is the Electoral College. See on the map, the Electoral College votes for each state. Michigan has 15, 2 senators, and 13 congressional districts. On election day, you and I cast our ballots for the candidates of our choice, but the real vote is when electors meet in December and cast their ballots. States are allocated 1 electoral vote per every representative in Congress. Each state starts with 2 and has 1 for every House member. 270 electoral votes are needed to become the president. Remember the number 270. 270 is a majority of the total number of electoral college votes, which is 538. So who are these electors who are deciding who the president is? The U.S. Constitution gives explicit power to the states to decide how their electors are chosen. Each state shall appoint in such a manner as the legislator thereof may direct a number of electors. State legislators decide how to award their state's electoral votes, a power that the Supreme Court has termed plenary as an absolute power of the states. 48 states choose electors based on whoever receives the most votes within their state on election day. These are winner-take-all laws. A winner-take-all method means the candidate who receives the majority of votes in the state's popular vote takes all of that state's electoral votes. So in 2020, in California, Democratic candidate Joe Biden received the most votes. He won all 55 of California's electoral votes. And in Texas, Republican candidate Donald Trump received the most votes, and he won all 38 of Texas's electoral votes. So in 2020, if you were one of the 6 million Californians who cast a ballot for Donald Trump, or one of the 5.2 million Texans who cast their vote for Joe Biden, their vote was effectively thrown out at the state line. So, state law is the reason we end up with divergent elections, when the popular vote winner is the electoral college loser, which leads us to discussing problems resulting from the current system. The problem we are the most familiar with, the persons with less votes can and frequently does end up in the White House. 5 times in our nation's history, the candidate who received fewer votes nationwide became the president. That means more than 10% of our presidents have been elected without even a plurality of voters supporting them. Currently, we are in an era of close elections. Just in the last 20 years, we've had 2 wrong winner elections, 2000 and 2016, and 2 near misses. You might be surprised to hear that one of the near misses almost put a Democrat in office over a Republican. In 2004, if 60,000 more voters in Ohio had cast their ballots for John Kerry instead of George Bush, Kerry would have won Ohio, won the Electoral College, and become president despite losing the popular vote by a larger margin than Donald Trump did in 2016. The 2020 election was our second near-miss election in the past 2 decades. If 21,460 voters had changed their minds and not voted for Biden, 5,229 in Arizona, 5,890 in Georgia, and 10,342 in Wisconsin, Trump would have gone on to win a second term despite losing the popular vote by over 7 million. Another huge problem with the way we elect the president is that every vote is not equal. Most voters are totally ignored in the general election and have their vote taken for granted. As a result of the winner-take-all laws, most states are decidedly red or decidedly blue. Candidates for the general election only campaign for a small number of undecided voters who live in closely divided states, swing states, or battleground states. The entire general election happens in 12 states or less, and those are the states that truly get to decide who the next president is. This has implications at the federal level as well as between states. 5 of our 9 Supreme Court justices were appointed by popular vote loser presidents. Remember, a winner-take-all method, meaning of the candidate who receives the majority of votes in the state's popular vote, takes all of that state's electoral votes. How should we elect the president? A national popular vote. Whoever gets the most votes should become the president. This is how we elect almost every other office in the country. And it is time we modernize our presidential elections and make every vote equal. Every vote being equal would mean candidates would have to care about the entire population's interests, not just those in swing states. We would break the system where candidates advocate for positions that poll well with swing voters and only listen to the concerns of voters in a small number of states. We can do this through the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. The National Popular Vote Bill guarantees the presidency to the candidate who receives the most popular votes in all 50 states and DC. If you win the popular vote, you win the Electoral College. This is a bill passed by states to change how they vote in the Electoral College. States replace their current law with a new state law that awards their electors to the candidate who wins the popular vote in all 50 states and DC. However, the bill in effect when states with 270 electoral votes have been committed to the compact, thus guaranteeing the Electoral College to the winner of the national popular vote. 270 electoral votes. We can have a national popular vote for president without a U.S. constitutional amendment, and it is because of these 17 words. Each state shall appoint in such a manner as the legislator thereof may direct a number of electors. Sound far-fetched? It isn't. This bill has been passed in 16 states with 195 electoral votes and counting. In previous years, it has passed in at least one chamber in 9 additional states with 88 electoral votes. National popular vote bills are currently pending in a dozen state legislatures. We are one of those states where we have been passing things and we're kind of just waiting for that final one to get there before we join that compact. Debunking common misconceptions. Myth: this is a partisan effort. This bill is not a reaction to the 2016 election and was in existence a full decade before Donald Trump was elected. It was first passed in 2007. This isn't a left or right-wing issue. It's an American issue that all voters can get behind. In 2018, 15 Republican senators in Michigan joined with Democrats to sponsor the National Popular Vote bill. Myth: small states would be hurt by a national popular vote. The small states, 13 states with only 3 or 4 electoral votes, are the most disadvantaged and ignored group of states under the current state-by-state winner-take-all method of awarding electoral votes. The reason is that political power in presidential elections comes from being a closely divided battleground state, and almost all of the small states are non-competitive states in presidential elections. As this graphic shows, of the states with 3 or 4 electoral votes, 7 are decidedly Republican and 7 are decidedly Democrat. The small states are not ignored because of their low population, but because they are not closely divided battleground states. The small states of Hawaii, Delaware, Rhode Island, Vermont, and DC have already signed on to National Popular Vote because they know it makes their votes more relevant. People sometimes fear that candidates will just visit the highest population states. Every vote in every state would matter in every presidential election under a national popular vote. Under a national popular vote, a voter in a small state would become as important as any other voter in the United States. So as you can see, the numbers are pretty matched with rural areas and urban areas. So the myth, candidates will just campaign in big states. They will have to campaign everywhere. Will New York City and LA decide who the president is? No. The myth, the candidates will just campaign in big cities, it is a common misconception that people fear that big cities will decide an election under a national popular vote. This stems from people thinking cities are bigger than they actually are. In fact, 19.6% of the U.S. lives in the 100 largest cities, while 20% of the country lives in rural America. To win the national popular vote, you can't just campaign to the 20% of people in rural America anymore, then you can just talk to the people in big cities. You have to speak to both groups as well as the 60% of Americans who live in the suburbs and are evenly divided between Democrats and Republicans. Currently, we have 2 kinds of voters in presidential elections. Those in flyover states and are irrelevant, and those in battleground states who are hyper-relevant. National popular vote corrects this. We don't have to guess about this because we know when every vote matters. For example, within battleground states, candidates go all over the state because every vote matters and has a chance to clinch that state's electoral vote. After coming up with the concept of electors choosing the president, the founders debated how those electors should be chosen. Our current system is nothing like it was at the founding of our country. In the first presidential election, only 5 states allowed citizens to vote for the president in any form. The founders ultimately decided to leave it up to the states to decide. The state legislature was the closest body to the people. They could decide what was best for the voters in their state. We are looking to state legislators to change their state laws exactly as the framers intended. It is in fact state legislators' constitutional duty to consider this matter. The National Popular Vote bill would guarantee the presidency to the candidate with the most votes. Every voter in every state would be politically relevant in the presidential election for the first time. The League of Women Voters Michigan voted to support this legislation in Michigan using the national position. League of Women Voters Michigan also joined the Michigan National Popular Vote Coalition. As part of the coalition, the League is engaged in a legislative campaign to pass the National Popular Vote Compact. The League of Women Voters is providing educational presentations at town halls and webinars across the state. These presentations play an important role in educating the public about the national popular vote and what we can do to help get the bill passed in legislature. The bill has been introduced. It has to go through the committee process and pass the Michigan House of Representatives and the Michigan Senate and be signed by the governor. No bill was introduced in 2019-2020 session, but in 2021-2022 session, House Bill 5343, September 28, 2021, introduced by Representative Colzar, Democrat, and it was referred to the Committee of Government Operations where it died. And here are some other Senate bills and other House bills that have gone through in the last couple of years. I actually have a House bill that if everybody wants to look at, I'll pass around. This is the most current one. Yep. Help make it happen. Contact your legislators, educate your neighbors, share information, look stuff up, research, and spread the word. We'd like to get it passed, and our legislative is working on it. This is the current bill that we have in our House, and we're hoping that the Elections Committee releases it, and they all vote again on it, and it goes to the governor. Here are some of the supportive organizations of National Popular Vote. League of Women Voters US supports National Popular Vote bill, and leagues, including the League of Michigan Voters, are engaged on this campaign all around the country. Here in Michigan, we are part of the Michigan National Popular Vote Coalition, and the league is working with the ACLU of Michigan, Common Cause, Mothering Justice, and Voters Not Politicians. But as you can see, there's quite a number of people that want each of us to have a vote that counts. Some additional resources, again, www.nationalpopularvote.com, or you can always find information on leagueofwomenvoters.org. I have some frequently asked questions that you can take home, a couple of sheets there if you'd like to. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming, and if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer some. Thank you.
The number of states in green in that one map. National Popular Vote has been enacted into law.
Mm-hmm. So they have joined the compact where if all of their electors are choosing out of all the votes in the country that the popular vote wins.
When a sufficient number of states, I believe 3/4 of them, vote to have an amendment added to the Constitution, is this heading in that direction?
This is not, because this is per the article, let me see if I can, Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution. It's already in there that each state shall appoint in such a manner as the legislator thereof may direct a number of electors. So right now, it is easier for each state to say we're joining the national popular vote than get that Senate and House national legislative vote to change the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So we can get each state to say, we want the popular guy, the popular vote to win. If we get 270 of those electors to say that in each state, then we have the majority, and it would go to the popular vote compact.
Would this be something that would be introduced first into the House of Representatives and then into the U.S. Senate?
I'm sure, yep, I'm not sure what the history, how it's been, or if it's been introduced at the national level. I just know that a lot more has been getting passed in each state house, and this has been one strategy that has started to to progress faster than the others. Cam?
How many states have to pass it, or is it based on the number of electoral votes?
It's based on the number of electoral votes in that state. So
Okay,
once our governor signs it, that will add 15 more to the 195 total that we have.
and then
right
it's
now.
just automatically enacted?
Yeah. And
Okay,
so as soon as we get that 270
Okay,
electoral count,
so it never has to go through the federal government? It can
Right,
just be
yeah.
done by-
it's just
That
chosen by the
was-
states, which is already in the US Constitution.
Oh, so it bypasses the Constitution?
Yeah,
Well,
But the Constitution provides for it already.
yes, the Constitution provides for it already. We just need the states to decide that's how they want to count. And that's where we have the map.
So, once enough states sign on to this agreement, what you're saying is, you would say to the 270 elector level, that we will be watching then how many people have voted for who rather than the electors. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Now, if I'm understanding, you could have a state where the ultimate winner was the loser in that state that agreed to this compact, maybe by a few votes or whatever. And so the winner of the election lost in that one particular state that agreed to this compact. And the loser of the election won in that one particular state. But because they committed their votes to the ultimate total of popular votes, that's a potential outcome.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because it's a national popular vote means that everyone's vote in the country is counted. So we wouldn't go, the only part in this coalition with the 270 electors is that we have the majority in the current system, so that we can change it to what all these states have passed. So once that majority has been reached, then we go based on each of our votes instead of who wins each state. But there is obviously this, somebody might still vote for a loser, and there still might be more people in Michigan who support one nominee, but then the national popular vote is not that person. But your vote would count, and that's what the difference is. Right now, if you vote for the person that isn't popular in your state, your vote is thrown out right there.
So it's the same thing, even with the electors, the electoral college. No, I mean, Michigan could go Republican, but if the whole country, if there's more electoral votes that go Democrat, then the Democrat wins. So, being concerned about, it's good that everybody has a say. That I believe is correct, but it's not any different than the electoral college, where your state might go one way, but the national electoral college goes the other way. Do you
Well,
follow what I'm
the way
saying?
I look at it, in the electoral, in the current situation, if I'm a minority in my state, my vote gets thrown out because all votes go to the other person. So, but now, it's not to the state, it's to the whole country.
Yes,
So now my vote counts because I'm
Yes.
part of the total
yes,
across the entire country. So now I count.
yes. I
But
like that.
I did want to mention, I don't know, some people may or may not be aware of this, but Saul Anuzes, who used to be the chair of the Michigan Republican Party, very conservative, is a strong proponent of the national popular vote. He has spoken on the radio and written op-eds or whatever on that topic. And Mark Brewer, the former chair of the Michigan Democratic Party, is a strong proponent. So this is truly a nonpartisan thing. It's now I'm not saying there aren't, maybe some people in the Republican Party or Democratic Party that are opposed to it or whatever, but we do have strong support in both parties for this.
assuming the number of green states will grow eventually to culminate in that 270, would this eventually pave the way for an amendment to the Constitution stating the president shall be elected by popular vote only nationwide?
It would have to be another, so in each state, the state senate and house have passed this at the state level. For it to change at the national level, it would have to go through the national house and senate, which it hasn't really been introduced at that level, that I
Yet.
know of.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if this ultimately stops here, that is another option. So if we can't collect any more states to pass at the state level, that we need to reach that 270, maybe we do, you know, keep pushing along, because really what we want is everyone's vote to count. One person, one vote. And, right now, the current system does not allow for that.
Right.
So if we can change that, we will, and we'll just find any way we can. Right now, the state electoral college, or the electoral votes for each state, changing how they do that process to a national popular vote has been working and gaining steam. So as you can see, green, orange, and yellow are all people who have passed in something, and then blue is even someone who, like, states that have been talking about it at least. So with that, looking at that for the numbers, it looks like as if we can get some of those blue states passed, it's gonna work. So we're just gonna keep talking to our neighbors and giving presentations like this, and hopefully everybody can start calling their legislators and letting them know this is a good way.
That leads us to another question here then. Can this be made effective through the measures of initiative and referendum in each state?
That I'm not sure.
The tools are there,
You could call your legislator and ask.
just curious.
If the best thing you can do is talk to your legislators and representatives and let them know that this is a problem that you want solved. Whether they want to do it, or whether they get enough feedback about the national popular vote, whether we can get that to work, or whether we can try other things. Those are all things that we have to contact those people we put on the front lines to do that work for us, so.
The state legislatures must pay attention to the voters if they introduce a measure by way of initiative. It's direct democracy is what it is actually.
And so that is, one way. I don't know if it's gone that way yet, but if this doesn't work, we can always start with that. Are there any other questions?
I was gonna say, on his point, our country sometimes likes to take baby steps, you know, and they might ultimately reach what you're talking about, but they want that little trial period, you know. Are we comfortable with this, you know, that kind of thing. And then maybe once they feel very confident about it, and more people like it, then they might go to that step that you're talking about.
Human beings enjoy gradual.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for coming, and I hope that you support National Popular Vote.